Welcome back into Venting with Us, guys. A double header. We're doing back to back episodes. Hope you had an amazing weekend. I hope you liked the last episode about Monte Teo. It is just gorgeous. I love the summertime. It's my beat. I don't, I feel like with winter, it's just too long. And we're still getting a lot of rain, but I'm not going to complain. Listen, let the rain come, take the pollen off. I don't have to do a car wash. That's even getting expensive. It's so crazy. The gas is at $5 out here. It's just like you can't go anywhere. You can't move. It's like, do I really want to go from here to there? Putting $5 of gas, it's just crazy. So in some places you can get it for like it's $4.40 $4.47. That's the cheapest that I've found so far. But the more out east you go, it's like the higher the price. It's just getting crazy. All right. Like, seriously, I don't need gas to be expensive right now. I have a car payment now. Like, this is just adding up. Everybody stop. By the way, I want to thank everybody on my TikTok community for enjoying all my draft was. I'm starting to get a little bit out of control with it, but it's so funny when I'm doing my draft was that I see other people and how creative they are, and I completely just, of course, I'm not like, making fun of the military or anything, even though some people may be like, you're not taking this seriously. Well, hello, I'm not a serious person, like by far. Like you should never come to me and be like, we might want to like go to her. She's very serious. Like, no, like I'm the opposite. Like, don't put me in a bad situation because it's going to be a whole comedic ride over here. Like, I don't know who initiated that one, but I'm just letting you know. Like, I am the worst person in bad situations. So, and I have proof, like my doctors, my friends who know me, they're like, no, this is not funny. And I'm like, oh no, I definitely know it's not funny, but we got to make this comical, in some way. So I'm just saying. But I am happy that you guys are enjoying Draft Wars, the series. I have come up with new characters and they're just getting wild. So now I have a druggie, I'm a part of it. So my mind is just going a little crazy. So last week when we spoke, the last episode we spoke about Tail and the catfishing thing, which they're still showing that show Catfish, but I don't know, like it's super hard to catfish someone nowadays because again, like you have AI and you can't get away with that because if you start like moving around while you're video chatting somebody, you're gonna see the glitches. So I don't know. It hasn't happened to me yet, but then again, I'm like nobody. So that's probably why it hasn't happened to me. Who knows? Today's episode is called Betrayal, the Kentucky Conman. This makes me angry because I do love Kentucky. I just love it out there. Everybody's so nice. I love that country feel that I love the Derby. I get very excited every single year, though I lost some money this year because I really thought that the horse commandment was gonna win, but it didn't. And I should have known, like it had very low bets against him. So, but I was like, no, I like the name. The name is strong. I'm gonna go commandment. And no, yeah, it was like goat trophy or something like that. That won. I should have definitely bet on him. But I'm not a good gambler either. This is why, like, when people say, let's go to Vegas. I'm like, let's go to the casino. I'm like, no, I don't like losing money at all. I'm like, if you're gonna go to the casinos, here's some coins, throw some coins into the slot machine. I'm good there. I know where my limit is. Most people are like, nah, it's fun. It's a rush. It's an adrenaline kick. And I'm like, I don't need that. I got wine, I got cheese, I got pretzels. That's my adrenaline kick. No, I got the beach. No, let's just stay away from losing money. Like I want money coming in, not going out. It's just it's just kind of the way my world works. So, but this story today is the story that every girl fantasizes, where she meets the Prince Charming. He comes from wealth, and you think you're gonna live happily ever after, and you've kissed the right frog, and all of a sudden shit hits the fan because the frog was a evil frog undercover, and he destroys everything that he touches, right? Very dramatic, I know. So this story begins with Libby. Libby met Ted back in August of 1991. She was minding her own business, and she met Ted in a bar. Now, they usually say that, you don't find good ones in a bar. Note to self, okay? But they had great conversation, and she said he was kind of a dud when she first met him. Like he at the bar, he was kind of just like, and she was like, I don't even know if I like this guy. Like this guy's a dork or whatever. They went on their first date, and she said that something was different about him. She just was very excited, and she really liked him. They both had the same views, where they were both into the church. I'm just saying, here we go. This is how it's starting, the church. See, pause right there. I'm just saying, okay, for those people that keep telling me, you're never going to find your husband in a bar. You're never going to find your husband in the streets. You're going to find your husband in the churches. I'm just saying, a lot of these stories are, so just saying. Listen, you guys know I'm spiritual. I love my Jesus. I'm still waiting for those blessings to come in. But I'm just saying, a lot of these stories don't end well with people that are in the church. So, FYI, though it has been Mormon, so it hasn't been really Christian. So, we're going to just keep on with the hope there. So, Ted's family was very connected. They were a part of the huge political world. In fact, Libby had said, the first interaction that she had with Ted's parents was at this political rally, and voting and all this stuff. And it was very intimidating, which it can be because, in that type of, I've only been to one ever where it's very intimidating because you're just like, oh my God, what are those big words that I that I have to remember? People were just very educated, very well into that field, So, but she was very excited. They were very welcoming, with Libby into the family, and she really was just like, wow, you know, this is the man of my dreams. I can't believe that I found someone like this. This is exactly what I want in my life. He was very, he had everything going for him. Um, there were signs, early on that, again, see these red flags, where her and Ted would have arguments and disagreements. And one occasion, the argument became very escalated. It became so escalated to the point where she really felt like she didn't want to marry Ted. And Libby's mom was not sound in reason at the time. She had a lot of mental issues. And she really got upset with Libby and told Libby, if you don't marry this man, I'm going to be very upset because the invitations went out. I would have been like, I don't give a fuck about the invitations. Like, the invitations are whatever. But the mom felt like she would be embarrassed by all the people that they sent this invitation. So Libby felt like her hands were tied and she had to go ahead and marry Ted. So fast forward, they get married. Libby has the wedding of her dreams, right? I'm still trying to figure out what mine's is. And it was just a beautiful day. And everybody was there. They were just in the best spirits. Soon after they were married, um, Libby had a daughter, and Libby had gotten sick shortly after she had her first child. So she wasn't really able to work at all. So, but Ted, being who he was and who his family was like, you know what? Don't worry about it, baby. I got you. You don't have to work. We're making so much money and I'm going to take care of this. At this time, Ted was a loan mortgage officer, finances, and he was able to pay the bills. He was able to buy her a new car. Their lifestyle changed. They went from one small house into a bigger house. And it seemed that the relationship, the marriage, was going on the right path. Libby, in fact, ended up having a total of 3 kids during this time, and life was great. She couldn't have been more happy in her life than anything else. One day, Libby's at home, minding her business, watching the telly, and she's watching this show about this woman who got duped by her husband, and he had stole all of this money from her. This has to be like some crime show or something that she was watching. See, this is where I'm telling you, if I ever get into a relationship, it's going to fuck me up because 1, I'm so independent. 2, I'm always like neurotic about my finances and what I spend that I'm just I know where my comfort level is. So if I go out with somebody, I can just easily be like, no, I got the bill, because it's not going to break me. But when you're in a relationship and you're not watching, and it's happened to me where, money was coming in, but I had no clue how the money was going out. And when I soon discovered that that money was being stolen out of my account, that was like a life lesson learned. And this happens to a lot of women because they depend on the husband and they're set up in that role where, okay, he brings in the money, he takes care of the bills. But what women should start doing is really, handling, okay, you're bringing in the money, but let me take care of the finances. Let me see what's actually going on, or teach me what the finances are. This is what happened with Libby. So she's watching this show. The woman is like, my husband stole all my money, and I didn't know about my finances. And, she got duped. She ended up with nothing. So Libby, of course, now is curious, and she goes over to her husband and she's like, you know what, Ted? I would like to learn about the finances. And of course, now there's an argument about this, and she couldn't understand it, but she lets it go because she wants to be the humble wife, not argue. He's working hard. She knows that there's money coming in, blah, blah, blah. And about the year of 2002, Ted sees this house and he's like, you know what? I want to buy this house. And it was in a very well neighborhood. You had this neighborhood. You literally had to be very prominent in order to move in, which I had no clue that there was stuff like that. That kind of shocked me because I was like, if you see a house you want, you can buy it. But no, apparently in some states, you have to be at a certain level in order to get into these neighborhoods. Okay. We live and we learn. So they end up buying this house and they sold their house. The house was big enough so that way Ted can put his business on his property. That's how big the house was. They had the main house, and then in the back was the business house. Now, Ted went into business with this other man named Khalid, and they were great at flipping houses. Now, this is a field where I wish I would have went into, but at the time when I was trying to do that, I didn't have the money to flip houses. And, but it's a great time, to do stuff like that. Definitely great business. You can make a lot of money in this. Um, so as they're flipping houses, and Ted and Khalid were flipping like 6, 7 houses at a time, and Libby was just kind of just like, this is great, da 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 da. But then shortly as they moved into this big house, and things are happening, things are moving, Ted comes home one day and she sees him in the bathroom and he's kind of huddled over the sink, and he's like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And she's like, "What the hell is going on with you?" And Ted tells Libby, he's like, "I just don't know about Khalib. I think he's going to murder you." And I would have been like, "What the fuck?" Oh, if he goes to Home Depot, I'm just saying. Like, let me know. Let me know where we're going from here. But um she's like, he's telling her all of this, and they're constantly fighting about finances and all of these things. She said at times he would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and he would go into his office, and she would go down there. She's like, "Ted, what are you doing?" And he was like, "I'm working on stuff for clients and whatnot." And she literally said, you know, "Clients? What client is up at 3 o'clock in the morning worrying about finances? And why are these people so important? No, 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 And she, and he, of course, there was arguments there. So a lot of the times she was sleeping alone. That would have been my flag number two. Flag number two, right there. Like, okay, either you're watching porn, you're doing something shady. Nobody works at this time. You're not a real estate broker. I'm sorry. No, 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 no. Something's happening here, and it don't smell right. Okay, it does not smell right. So one day, after some time has passed, Ted goes over to Libby and he says to her, "Libby, I have to tell you something. I'm just not going to be working with Khalib anymore." Now, Khalib is actually in the documentary, which, pause, by the way, if you want to see this documentary, it's called Betrayal. It is on Hulu. And it's episode, I think, number 4 or 5. But it's a great show. It's a great podcast to listen to. I'm just giving you the synopsis on it. And Libby's like, "What do you mean you're not going to be working with Khalib anymore?" He's like, "I just don't trust the guy. I don't know. He's a little shady. I don't know." So Libby's like, "Okay." Now, again, Libby had been trying to figure out about the finances. She wanted to learn more about the finances. She kept pressing Ted on this, especially now that he broke off things with Khalid, which made her even more curious of what was going on. She just wanted to know. So they end up in this huge fight, and he leaves the home. He's like, "You know what? Fuck this." He leaves the home. It's 3 days before Christmas. Nevertheless, he ends up getting an apartment. That would have been like, okay, red flags all right there, right? All right there. One day, Ted comes back to the house, and he's like, "Okay, Libby, I gotta tell you something. She's like, mm-hmm. And he's like, we gotta sell the house, we gotta file for bankruptcy, like I'm in some shit, like financial, we have major financial problems. And now she's freaking out. She's like, what the fuck? This is the number one thing that I will say to women out there. And again, I have experienced this myself, where I had left someone who was bringing in all the money. We lived in a house together. And, again, I was very blinded at that time where I didn't know how the finances were coming in. After 11 years of um, all of the things that had transpired into that relationship, I had had enough. I walked away. And I literally was like, you know what? I remember telling him, I was like, you know what? If it's meant to be, we'll be back together. But, at this moment, I just can't do this anymore. I really, really can't. And he was like, well, you're not leaving with anything. And I left with nothing but my clothes. I had to start over. Like, I couldn't take my bedroom set that my grandmother had paid for. I could not take anything. I had bought him a car, so the car was in his name, but he didn't even let me leave with that at the time. I had my own car, and I left. I got myself a little like rinky dinky apartment, and I made the best of it. And I remember sleeping on an air mattress for a couple of months until I can financially get a bedroom set and start working myself way up. And I remember specifically saying to myself, I will never let any man do that to me ever again. I will always make sure that I am in a situation where I am financially stable enough that I will never have to be like, if I have to leave or he leaves me, I will always have that financial security. And a lot of women, even to this day, put themselves in that situation. You see it a lot on the housewives, the real housewives of like OC and Orange County and all this stuff. And, they're living these lavish luxury lives, but, you know, they put themselves in a situation where they're really not financially stable. So then the marriage breaks up, and now they're kind of like, well, I'm going to need spousal support. And then, and nowadays, a lot of these men are going back to court. The spousal support is being dropped, and they're only making X amount of money, which I can still live off of. I'm good. But when you're used to a certain lifestyle for so long, you expect to continue to live that lifestyle, or you learn from it. I think Erica Jane is, I love her story in Housewives. And I know I'm going a little left on this because she had all this money, she had all of this fame, though what happened to her was still in, transition of finding out the truth. I don't believe that she stole money from people. I believe it was all her husband, who now is recently has passed. But and unfortunately, the consequences of being in that relationship was, she left with nothing. She was living this huge lifestyle, and she's not living broke. She can still, afford certain things, but you can definitely see the change, but she accepted it. Some people just can't accept it. And you hear all of these stories about it. So, definitely always have that financial security for yourself, because you just never know what's going to happen. So, um, now they file for, so now Libby and Ted have moved forward. They filed for a divorce. Libby's like, I don't want to do anything, you know, with Ted. I don't want to be with Ted. I don't know what's happening. There was only about $1,100 left in the bank. She couldn't believe it. She had to, really let the government know all her assets and all. She's thinking all of these things are coming in. And she soon finds out that not only that Ted had fraud everything in her name. Okay. She had creditors coming out for her. Her car, which she thought that Ted had bought for her, it was her dream car. He actually just financed it and he put it in her name, credit cards, the house, everything. He basically had, and the only reason why she found out the car was because the car was the car company was trying to get their money and they wanted to repossess her car. That's scary, you know? And one day the call stops because Ted had stole the car, lunatic, and I guess he must have turned it in at this time because he knew that this was going to be another thing. Now, Ted did exactly what every guy would do, okay, in this do or die situation. She couldn't figure it out, but she ends up finding out later. Ted had actually wrote Libby this note. He was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, it happened. I love you so much. I want this marriage to work and blah blah blah." Now, this whole entire time, she's like, I don't think so. So in 2005, Libby and Ted's divorce would be finalized. And in the divorce agreement, this is where it's fucked up. Libby's husband, Ted, was supposed to in the divorce agreement. Um, Libby was only allowed to live in a condo through Ted's family for about 2 years, and then they would receive $1,200 for child support. Ted, this douchebag, ends up going to court, talks to the judge. Now, remember, his family is in this well-known prominence. So sometimes this is why, who is like important, but it can also screw you in the end. And he got the child support reduced down to from $1,200 a month to, get this, guys, $149 a month. You can't even buy groceries nowadays, okay, for yourself. Who are you feeding with that? That is the most craziest thing in the world. But the judge approved this, and Libby went to Ted's parents, his mom specifically, and was like, this is what's happening. Ted is, in a lot of financial trouble. She couldn't, understand what was happening. And the mother was like, no, I'm sorry. We're going to go with what the agreement is. You stay in this condo for 2 years, you bitch, and we're going to give you $149. Rude. That is your grandchild. Like, seriously? I would have knocked her out, but then we would have had to go to court for so many other different things. So we probably didn't want that. Libby was smart though. Libby went to this country club that Ted used to go to all the time, and she ran into Ted's friend who was a lawyer. And this is where Libby, okay, girl code down. She's now putting on her antennas and she's like, I need to know what exactly is going on. So Ted's friend, who is a lawyer, tells Libby, he's like, look, Ted is in some fucked up shit. He has committed wire fraud. He has committed all types of financial fraud. So, and the FBI now, girl, they're looking for Ted. So you might want to go talk to the feds. At this time, Ted ends up getting arrested for the charges of wire fraud and falsified documents. He basically was buying cheap houses and then he would sell it at a very, very expensive price. So now here's where Caleb would come into the story. Caleb was not understanding how these houses were getting approved when people, he was like, I don't understand how the loans are being approved like this. Well, Ted was falsifying that the loans were being approved because he owned the loan company. So he would sign off on the documentation and he was signing off on Libby's name. Libby went to the feds and she was like, looking back, I got this letter that he wrote to me. And the feds were like, oh, Libby, I love you. Okay, this motherfucker tried to lie to us and say it was all Libby. Okay, now we got the proof. So Ted ended up pleading guilty for all the charges. Poor Libby still has to deal with all of this fraud. Her credit has been all fucked up. And she, it's been a tough road, but she ended up finding another love. And, you know, she ended up finding out on top of this, not only did Ted destroy her her life. He was supposed to serve about 18 months. Ted ends up only getting a week in jail. And then he ends up picking up his life, driving a BMW. And, like that was me. This is why, murder mystery stories start to come into play. All right, guys. If again, this is Betrayal, the Kentucky Conman. If you guys want to see it, it's on Hulu. It's actually on there now. I hope you enjoyed this story, this documentary. Next week, we have I'm trying to debate whether or not if I want to do The Crash, which is crazy, which I probably do, or we also have Betrayal, Later Days Lies. So I hope you guys stay in tuned for next week. I love you guys so much. Enjoy your weekend. Another beautiful weekend out there. And again, if you know anyone that wants to follow the show, definitely keep reaching out. Spread the word, spread the word, spread the word. I love you guys so much. Have a great weekend. Love you.